Evening and welcome to the May 24th meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, thank you for coming and welcome. Those of you that are tuning in, thank you as well. We've had a brief executive session this evening, and the next thing that we will deal with on the agenda is a couple of public hearings. The first to deal with a proposed amendment to the Zoning Ordinance Article 2, Section 208, which is the size reductions increases with minor revisions to Section 801, 902, 1001, 1201. This has been a change that has been multiple years in the works. Planning Board took a few runs at it. It's been back and forth between the board and the Planning Board. I think the board is now kind of taking this over. It really puts eliminates or takes the issuance of variances away from the Planning Board, which our legal counsel has advised us to do for years. So that's the first one. The second one is to do with campground ordinances. Those of you that are here that think we might be talking about docks tonight, we're not. This is strictly talking about the change in the ordinance that deals with campgrounds in the town of Waterboro, and not a specific campground, campgrounds. So we'll be doing that public hearing second. So without any further ado, I would call the public hearing number 1 to order. Lee J is here. I think I'll turn it over to you, seeing as how you have driven the last versions of this thing anyway.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Select Board, how are you? I don't know if you want me to go through the whole thing again. I will tell you that since the last meeting, I have made the modifications as requested, which was under section 2.08, number 1, yard requirements. B, we changed the minimum setback from 5 feet to 10 feet. Which would then give 20-foot separation between two buildings on two separate parcels. And I eliminated any of the proposed changes that would have also done that under the notes section where the table is located. Okay. So that should have corrected your concerns and the concerns that were raised at the last public hearing. And I'm hoping that we're ready to go.
Okay.
Just for clarification,
yes.
There's some new people on the back. Who are you and what do you do here?
I am Lee J. Feldman. I am a contract planner with Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission, and I represent the town on all zoning and planning matters.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the board? I think Lee J. is, taking what was in the last public hearing and in our last discussions before we voted on it to heart, so that's where we are today. So I would open it up to any public comment that anybody might have. Sensing none. I will close the public hearing for this particular change. We will be voting on this later in the agenda. So public hearing 1 is closed. We'll call to open the public hearing 2, and this is to hear public comment regarding proposed amendments to the Zoning Ordinance Article 7, Section 703, Campground Developments. So Lee J., I would ask that you, and I know there's a couple of planning board members here as well tonight, so
yes.
If you want to have some input, that's fine too. So.
Yes, thank you. Here again, this time dealing with ordinance structure for the review of campground projects. In saying that, I know there's been concerns regarding the shoreland zoning and the issues on docks. This ordinance has absolutely nothing to do with that. This is for any campground going anywhere in the town of Waterboro. The standards that are currently in the ordinance are very dated. They quite honestly don't make any sense. And I tried to realign these, as I'm going to be doing throughout the zoning ordinance over hopefully the next year, making adjustments in all sorts of sections of the ordinance. So just to hit some of the highlights, what we've done is actually wrote in a limitation on when a campground can actually operate, so that it's clear that it's May 1st to October 31st. We have indicated very specifically the amount of lighting that they can have in a campground, relevant to i.e. street lights or guiding lights throughout there. We've actually established a foot candle standard, which hadn't existed prior. We talk about the size and requirement of hammerhead turnarounds if any of the campground roads are dead end, so that safety vehicles can adequately get in there and maneuver as they need to for the town's purposes. We require certain buffer strips, planting and fencing between campgrounds and property lines to try and protect any abutters. We note minimum lot size requirements for campgrounds. If you're anybody, anywhere, you can have the campground can design their lots to be 1,250 feet, but if you're in the shoreland zone, you have to be 5,000 feet, which is a state law. So we wanted to make sure that that was noted in here. We do talk about just trying to look through here. The numbers of laundry facilities and bathrooms that would need to be accommodating. Quite frankly, the last ordinance required so many, it didn't make sense, especially today with the number of self-contained units that exist and sewer systems that exist within the campground itself. So we've addressed that. We've addressed the issue of trash containers and how far apart they need to be and where they need to be located. We've addressed electrical relevant to campgrounds having 110, 115 volts for service. We've also indicated that they can only have as defined, a recreational vehicle accessory enclosure, i.e. a screen room, that can be no larger than 10 feet in width. So it limits the size of any additions, if you will, that anybody would put on any campers that are there for seasonal purposes. So with that, those are the highlights of the standards that we've now many of which did not exist in the current ordinance, and I think one, help us with having standards, and two, provides additional guidance to anybody that wants to come in and develop a campground anywhere in town.
Okay. Questions from the board for DJ?
Got a couple. Does it make a difference whether or not some structures were placed on the particular unit prior to? Is there a grandfathering of that, or?
Like any non-conforming situation anywhere, although it's not specifically mentioned here, that if a camping unit were in a campground and they moved from one location to another, they could take that existing addition with them. But if they were to leave the campsite and come back or come in with a new unit, then they would need to comply with anything that is required through this ordinance.
And my second question is do we have a device that can measure the candle power emitted by these lights, or how are we going to be able to enforce that?
We're going to enforce that basically through the review process. So when they come in front of the planning board, they're going to have to provide us a plan that indicates what their candlelight footage will be. They're able to do that with lighting consultants, and they show what the spread is based on, I call it the spread of the foot candle on the ground based on the type of lighting that they will be putting in the site.
And how do we enforce that to make sure that they're in compliance?
Enforcement, to make sure they're in compliance, is a little bit more difficult. But if they've installed the light fixtures that they've shown on the plan and they've shown us what the foot candle outage would be, that would be the only way to do it. Unless the town were to buy a meter. Not many towns buy those meters, but many towns do put these standards in place to try to get people to comply through the review process.
So you're basically asking for voluntary compliance?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
So is this ordinance based on ordinances that other communities have?
Yep, I looked at other communities to see what their standards were. I didn't compile any. I also went online, of course, and queried campground standards. There's hundreds of them out there all over the country, and tried to review them and see what would really make sense here and how would things work here. That was the best I could do in working with the planning board on that.
Okay. Now, with just some of the questions I had, with, I think one of the things that, you know, is the town we're trying to promote is the beautiful rural character of the community, the recreational opportunities that are here. And so when I think of a campground and an opportunity for us to have a successful business in town, you know, I wonder, do we really need to limit a campground to only being open during certain times of the year? If we had a campground that could be in compliance and offer, you know, full season camping, and potentially bring some revenue and bring people in
Sure.
to the community, do we really want to limit closing it as of October 31st?
Sure, great question, because there are a limited number of campgrounds that have done that in New England. Of course, I know snowmobiling is big here, and certainly people would like the opportunity to come up and use their camper if they're snowmobilers as well. The reason, at least at this point, that we've gone in this direction is if you look at probably the biggest campground in the state, Point Sebago, some of the controversy and issues that Casco has dealt with is by doing that, are people going to actually live there year round, and are they going to have kids? So does it move from a campground to a trailer park? And it may not do that. What's the word I'm looking for? They may not intentionally do that initially, but it could move in that direction.
Okay.
And so by trying to limit the length of time that they're there, it would hopefully assure that people aren't going to be moving in and living there year round and have children in the school system.
Okay. And then if I'm reading this properly, every site that's in a campground is going to be required to have electricity, water.
No, there are tent sites that are allowed, and they would not be required to have sewer, water, electricity.
Okay.
Yes.
What about if somebody wanted to come in with a self-contained recreational vehicle that they've got all of their amenities on board and don't need that sourcing?
Usually those sites have that available, have those amenities available for them to come in and plug in for the night or for the weekend. Some of them may not utilize the sewer hookup, but they may in fact dump their system on their way out if the campground has a dump location.
Yep.
So for someone that owns a self-contained, it really becomes, you know, what options do they want to use in a facility if the facility has them.
Okay. And then my last question was, I was a little bit confused about when it talks about the accessory enclosures.
Yes.
The factory manufactured rigid metal, I understand all that, but where I get a little confused is where it says the term shall not include decks, patios, that makes sense.
Yep.
Awnings, awning tents, screen panels. Isn't that accessories?
Those are accessory, but those are much more, much easier to take down and move and relocate. If you look at some of the campgrounds, in fact, I might have it in my folder. I can certainly pass around. There are some there are rigid additions that people put
Yeah,
on.
like the ones that go, you put the kind of like a deck down in the framework.
Exactly,
Okay.
and actually almost have storm windows in them. They're fairly permanent
Yeah.
type of additions. That's more of what we're trying to regulate.
Okay. Okay, I'm all set.
Can I make another, just a comment? Is there a way, I think Selectman Gerard raises an interesting point about promoting, a healthy business climate and trying to coexist with people exercising recreational endeavors. Is there a way that we could incorporate within the structure of this ordinance a provision where if a party has a camper already located within a campground, that they could get like a weekend pass or a 3-day pass from the town for them to come up to snowmobile or ice fish or whatever, and that would be a controlling mechanism against them establishing a year-round residency. You could even limit it to, if you want to limit it to the number of times they could do that during the course of a year, but then it's a little more self-defeating. I think maybe government's getting too big there. But
Yep, I think that's a great question. I think that's something that would need a little bit more time to look into, because that comes with administrative processes and how do we do that. I don't have that answer. I might need to work with Gary a little bit and see if we can figure out a way to do that, if that's the select board's desire. It can somehow work, I'm sure, but I wouldn't want to just say, yes, and I can write it right in, because I'm not sure what that process would be yet.
What if you had, instead of the town being the ones to kind of administer that, if you included some provision in the ordinance that it's the responsibility of the campground owner to maintain a log, like an off-season log of the comings and goings of their campers, and provide that, to the CEO upon request. So I think, our CEO is out and about certainly often enough.
Doesn't, the planning board has the right to condition, or allow a condition of that, right? I mean, somebody comes in and develops a new campground and says, hey, I'm going to accommodate, I have a vision of accommodating snowmobilers. Couldn't the planning board, as a conditional use, put that onto the
I think
permitting process?
I think my quick thought on that.
Then you would have to have it in the ordinance as
Right.
much as that the planning board would have that
Right.
ability to condition.
I think that might be something that we can do, would be that if someone came forward with a campground project and said, by the way, we'd really, we know that it's limited. I think the limiting piece is basically we don't want the whole facility opened all the time, but we'd like to be able to invite snowmobilers up and have a couple of weekends. We could condition that approval on them only having certain dates available for that. That is clearly something that we can do through the review process, yes.
okay. Isn't it dependent on the weather? I mean, why allow somebody to have a weekend that there's no snow?
Right.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
It may not be a dated weekend, but they may say we want to be able to open up the campgrounds for snowmobiling, 4 weekends a year or 4 weeks a winter or something like that. As long as we can work with them on, weather permitting type of situations, I think that's just something that, from an enforcement standpoint, and working.
I would envision that, if this ice fishing tournament ever
Right.
gets if there's ever ice again on Ospey Lake, but there might be something that in conjunction with that they would want to be able to accommodate people that are coming in. But those, I think, you could condition based on.
We could structure conditions, yes, we could.
John.
This is a great idea here. I just don't want to see it hold up the ordinance to try to explore it further. I think if we pass the ordinance, this is something that can be added on fairly easily when it's been
I'm always a believer.
digested.
I'm always a believer in ordinances are not made to put in place and just say no. We can't change them. I think that if we find flaws, if we find issues, it's always, let's go back and let's get it changed. Let's address it. So from that standpoint, I would agree. I also think that from the conditions that we could put on anybody that wants to do that. That's certainly a way to experiment with it early on. I'm quite honestly, I don't know that we're having the doors banged down right now for campgrounds, but certainly I'm always a believer of let's get something in place and see how it works, and if we need to modify it, we modify it.
And the owners of campgrounds will hold us to.
I'm sure they
to
will.
The fire on this.
I'm sure they will.
Well, we would have to hold their feet to the fire. The utilities would be much deeper. They'd
Yep.
have to build this to be functional in the winter for water coming in and sewage going out.
That's right.
Very different kettle of fish than.
You're certainly not going to put your water lines or your sewer lines, a foot underground. They're going to have to go 3-4 feet, which is below frost.
Extra parking for snow sled trailers and all that.
Right.
It can be done.
It can be done. Absolutely.
This would probably be done in 15 or 20 lots, very close to the office where you're gonna plow it and
Yeah.
keep it open, but
Yeah.
it would be the front side of your campground,
Right.
more or less.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think a lot of that depends on if it's a major campground operation and there are seasonally units. There may be people coming up that already have their units there and just leave them there. But in other campgrounds where people do pull their units out for the winter, they may say, let's take it up there, and yes, then they can just have. May not be the unit, the lot that you're in all summer, but it may be a lot that's easier to
Somebody
maintain.
couldn't keep 100 lots open just so
Right.
he could rent 15.
Exactly.
This does not address the issue of primitive campground, right? I mean, we had
No, it does
some
not.
discussion relative to that, so that
It does not.
doesn't address that.
Correct.
So if that's something in the future, that'll have to be addressed.
Yes.
Right.
Totally separate animal.
Okay, anything
So-
from the, yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, so you lost me a little bit there.
Primitive
So-
in no water, no.
Right, so
Tent
you're
sites.
passing a campground ordinance. This isn't inclusive of all campgrounds?
It's not inclusive of primitive campgrounds, which is a completely different animal and regulated completely differently at the state level.
Okay. So you'd have to have two separate,
No cars in, no cars out. People have to carry trash out. There's no formal bathroom facilities. It's a very different animal.
yep. So that is going to be in a separate ordinance to come?
Yes, we haven't worked real hard on it. I know early on there was some interest in that when I first came on board here. That interest, at least from everything I've seen, has kind of waned. So there's been no major push to get that done.
So would that end up being like an addendum to, or an addition to this ordinance would all fell under one?
Yes, it would not fall under one. It might be separate and stand alone, but in the same area. I mean, it's kind of early on, but in trying to realign everything, I'm envisioning sections of the ordinance, and that would be a subsection within a section,
Okay.
if you follow me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is different than tent sites in a campground. correct?
Tent sites are allowed here, but not primitive camping.
But
Primitive-
the tent sites have to have facilities that
Yes.
they can use.
Yes,
right?
and there are facility standards in here for the campground to supply.
So if somebody came in tomorrow and said, I want to put in a primitive campground,
Yep.
what would our answer be?
We don't have that allowance right now, and we're going to need to address it.
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
No.
The answer would have to be no.
Correct.
Planning board, Judith and Dwayne are here. Any comments? Anything you want to add? I know this has been through your vetting.
Primitive camp. Dwayne Prescott, I'm on the planning board. The primitive campgrounds right now would have to go by state guidelines, which are pretty much seriously high and tight. The reason the planning board went with the campground ordinance and not the primitive was because it was a mix and match. We figured we'd make one clear first. After we get this in place, we're gonna look back and start working on that one. So it hasn't fallen by the wayside. We just needed to separate and detail it out. As far as putting kids in the school system, the zoning would take care of that. If it's not permanent zoned, then you can't have your kids in the school system. And we're gonna have to look into it. I believe there's something that says you can only be here 6 months and 1 day. Otherwise, it changes the zoning. So we'll look into that part. I do like the idea, especially of advancing the conditional use. Absolutely. I think that you guys are right on target with that. And as far as them opening up their campground year round, maintenance falls on them. You know, they're plowing, they're this, but yes, if when they come to the planning board, they say they want to do it year round, they'd have to build it accordingly. So I've got all these written down, and I'll get with Lee J, and we'll bring it up to the planning board, but I agree with Selectman Gale. I don't see tying this up, because this is nice, high, and tight as it is, and we can always amend it later on. And I got no problem with bringing this forward on the planning board and bringing it to the front.
Okay. Thanks, Dwayne. Judith, did you want to say anything as a planning board member? All set?
The only thing I wanted to add that Lee J didn't touch on was he did say how archaic our ordinance was, and one of the features was a 50-foot wide roadway, which he told us is the size of a turnpike.
Yeah, I mean,
we shortened it.
from an anti-development standpoint, which that ordinance did, it required 50-foot roads. There's no road in the town that's 50 feet wide, and so it just didn't make sense. So that was certainly a major prohibitor of allowing any new campgrounds to develop in town. It made sense for us to revisit that.
Okay. Anything else from the board or planning board?
Tim?
If not, I'm going to open it up to public comment. I saw Tim's hand up first.
Hi, my name's Tim Neal. I think you guys are almost there in what you were saying about being business friendly, what Dwayne is saying about having the utility support a year-round use, and you don't want kids in the school. Just say after October 31st that it could be used on weekends. And, you know, that there go the kids, and it brings a business in, and, you know, whether they're leaf peeping or snowmobiling, just get out of the business of what they're doing. Just say if your facility will support cold weather, weekend use, then come up on the weekend. And make that part of the ordinance. No conditional uses, you don't have to complicate it. And that's it, thanks.
Gentleman in the back there, if you could come up and introduce yourself. And apologize for not recognizing people
Okay.
again.
My name's Ross Indio. I'm a summer resident, long-time summer resident. I had a couple of questions. One, the diagram that shows the hammerhead, there's a note that says acceptable alternative to 120-foot hammerhead. And I guess my question is that did you consider a circular, so the fire engines could just make the turn, emergency vehicle rather than, go in and come out? That was one of my questions. If you made it a circle rather than a T. That's the first question. The second one is, does this section apply and these rules apply to existing campgrounds, or is everything that is in the town now grandfathered and this is going forward? That's the second question. And then the last one is just a comment, having kind of been listening to what this gentleman here talked about the plowing, for the winter time. And also emergency vehicles in the winter. And then the gentleman just before me mentioned about only on the weekends. When you really think about it, there's a lot of people that hunt. And they don't hunt for the weekend. I mean, and people would love to use the snowmobiles at a week at a time. And a lot of people are now taking vacations in the winter and after October 31st. It could be beautiful in November and December. Or early in the season. So I kind of agree with what this gentleman said. You've done a lot of work to get to this point. I think it's very good and it addresses a number of the issues. And again, I only had those few questions. The engineering one is the one that really, I like to see a fire engine be able to just keep going, in and out. If it has to make a turn, don't put anything in reverse if you don't have to. This is fine if you've got a trailer or a boat or a maintenance vehicle. But an emergency vehicle, you want to get them in and get them out as fast as you can. And that was that. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the board.
Okay, appreciate it. BJ, you want to address the hammerhead issue?
I can try. The hammerhead basically was one that it takes up less room than a cul-de-sac. Cul-de-sac, in this case, you need like a 70-foot radius in order to be able to get a fire truck around it. and the hammerhead takes up less room. Talking with Chief and other public emergency people, they really don't have a problem with hammerheads as long as they've got enough distance to be able to pull that truck up, back it, and move out. So that's why we went with that. It wasn't a matter of one versus the other. It was a matter of what makes the most sense, and this seemed to work.
Second issue was
Second
existing, and I would guess anything that exists today is grandfathered, but any expansion,
Any
alterations would
expansions, correct, or new campgrounds would be subject to these. Anybody that's in place now, we certainly are not going to go in there and make them come back and redesign their campground to meet these standards, no.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That answer your question, sir?
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
That hammerhead isn't something that's gonna be demanded. They could put a cul-de-sac in, but it's gonna take more land. So it's the hammerhead, I believe, is an option, and the cul-de-sac could still be used, but it takes almost twice as much
Yeah, I mean, if
square footage to put it in.
if someone chose to want to do a cul-de-sac, we could certainly work with them to do that. And actually, when in earlier drafts of the ordinance, we didn't even allow that. We required all the roads to be loop roads and connected. So when we got to talking and working this thing through, we finally determined that doing something like this made sense to be able to dead end some roads. But you're correct. I mean, that's the standard, but we'd certainly be willing to work with people.
A hammerhead is a lot easier to maintain in the wintertime if you plow that. When you plow circles, you can't move it all.
Okay. Anything else, folks? If not, I guess I would declare that this public hearing be closed, and we will vote on these later in the agenda. If I can get my computer to go back to page 1. Okay. Any announcements other than the one that we've got on the agenda here? Just so that everybody knows, June 4th is a free disposal day at the transfer station. You must have a Waterboro Transfer Station sticker. But if you bring tires, wheels, steel, anything that typically we charge for, it is a free day. So I know they've been very successful. Well, I guess depends on how you look at it, right? But I know they've attracted a lot of interest in things. They've been pretty costly, right? Well, it costs us about $10,000, I think, to dispose of stuff that comes in on a day. Bridget, you had a question? You have an announcement, okay?
My name is Bridget McCallum, and I have allergies.
Could you speak up?
The problem is, if I speak up, I go into a lower register, and I don't know if you want me to use that. I feel like an adolescent boy.
Is that
I don't think that's politically correct to say that.
That is not the announcement.
We have unisex bathrooms, so don't worry about that.
I prefer not to pursue that train of thought. Thank you. I am here to say that tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, there's going to be a mega dig, meaning that all the plants in one of the very long beds at the Taylor House Museum Gardens are going to come out and be moved into a new bed that Sandy Bennett and others have constructed. And so we are inviting everyone from master gardeners to people who can just write names of plants on labels, who is willing to come and spend a few hours to help us do this really large but really amazing project. If we don't get done tomorrow, we're going to start at 3, and the plan is to go until dusk. So if you can come after school, after work, you'd be welcome. We have lots of experienced gardeners to give directions and to help people dig plants without destroying them, so people who don't have experience shouldn't feel shy to come. So if we need to, we'll be continuing on Thursday at 3 o'clock. There is another whole bed that will need to come out, and when that's coming, I'm not sure. But one whole new bed is in place. You can see it when you drive by. And all the plants from an old bed are going to be transferred into the new bed tomorrow. And those that don't fit or extras are going into the plant sale, which is my second announcement, that the community gardens and the garden club are co-sponsoring a plant sale at the same time as the dump. You can dump everything and then come buy plants with your empty trailers. And that's to benefit both groups. So that's Saturday, June 4th from 9 to noon. The plant sale at Town Hall in the parking lot by the community gardens.
Okay. Thank you, Bridget. And everybody, and I'm sure you appreciate everybody being quiet while you were saying. Any other announcements from the board? Just a reminder that we are now very close to town meeting and town election day. So Tuesday, the 14th of June, will be elections, which will be held at the M.R.S.A East facility. And then Saturday, the 18th, and the polls are open from 7 to 8. And Saturday, June 18th, 10 a.m. will be the annual town meeting, and that will be at the middle school, at the cafeteria down here on Route 5. So put that right in your little calendars. Okay.
I got one thing.
You slipped up?
I slipped up, yeah. I like to try to recognize area athletes from Massabesic, when they accomplish something I think is particularly noteworthy. And in this case, the gentleman that does all our maintenance for Parks and Recreation, Mike Risty, his son has broken the world record in a particular event in weightlifting for his weight class. He weighs 218 pounds, and the combined weight of the two events that he was in was 953 pounds, and he broke a world record. So he has been invited to an invitational, I can't remember exactly where, if it was Kentucky or Colorado or something, but he has been, invited to that. He has also been named University of Southern Maine Rookie of the Year in wrestling. So he was a standout state champion at Massabesic High School. So I think that, kudos to him.
He was an All-American, right?
He was All-American, yeah. One of the ones who was
I
All-American.
think a picture of him was in the reporter.
Excuse me?
A picture of him was in the reporter.
That's right. Yeah, this week.
That I
Yes,
just
this
picked
past-
up, which must have been last Friday's.
Michael Risty.
Anything else? All right, let's move on. We do not have any deletions to the agenda. We're all set, right?
Correct.
Additions or deletions. We have no appointments. Any public comment? Sensing none, we'll drive into correspondence. We have our normal treasurer's reports, Eco Maine recycling reports are in this week's correspondence folder. We do have a letter from one of our committee chairs that will not seek renewal, a reappointment, motor vehicle agents report for April, and Senator Woodson's newsletter. Those are all in the Selectmen's correspondence. Reports and staff initiatives, Selectmen reports. Dwayne, anything?
No.
Amy, Joe?
Nope.
John, any report?
Yes, this afternoon, there was a dedication of the Betty Graffam Children's Center, which is the Head Start building on Middle Road. It was dedicated to Betty Graffam from York County Community Action. She had just retired. This is a very interesting woman. She started out in Head Start with 4 children, didn't have a driver's license, didn't have a diploma from high school, and came to Head Start in Sanford and volunteered to cook for the program. She'd never, she'd cooked before, but she hadn't cooked for 25 kids plus staff. And then that led to a job cooking for Head Start. She, after some time cooking, 5-6 years, she decided to get her finish out her high school diploma, and then she got a job teaching students as an ed tech. She went on from there and got her 2-year degree and got a job paying a little bit more, working with kids. Then she got a 4-year degree and she got certified nationally at the highest level. And she ended up the past, I think, about 6 or 7 years as the executive director of Head Start for the county. So this is really, truly an unusual person. And she was, the center was named after her. So it was, it was a pleasure for me representing the town there.
Anything else, John? What's it?
No, all set, thank you.
Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some good news. As you know, the rehab bus we have for the fire station lost its engine here weeks ago. It's going to be very expensive, but the RSU 57 administration and the bus garage stepped up and said, we can fix that for you. They worked on the bus when they had it, so for less than $2,000 in parts, they've done a great thing, and the bus is back in service. It was delivered today back to the fire station. We're going to work at getting an air conditioner in it in case we need to use it in the summertime, and then it could be used both summer and winter. The transfer station hauling contract went out to bid May 12th. We've delivered packages to at least 12 potential haulers, and it's also been advertised in the papers. The bids are due June 7th. We have some good news about the bridge replacement over the Little Ossipee River on Route 5. That was originally going to be a single lane road with a light on each side of the river that would cause incredible backups. And don't thank me on this. DOT just thought about it, I guess, and thought about Freiburg Fair Week and said, ew. And they changed it to a double temporary bridge with no lights. So that was great news to hear. On a sad note, we said goodbye to Christina Silberman, a longtime assistant here who's helped me immensely and helped this board immensely. She's gone to work for the town of Cumberland. We wish her well, but we miss her. Applications are in process. They're trickling in a lot slower than the last time we had a vacancy here, but the application period is open until the job is filled, and hopefully we'll have interviews starting within the next couple of weeks. Our roof on this building is going to start probably next week. They'll bring materials here, not this coming Monday. We'll probably start this coming Tuesday. They'll be putting materials out on the side here. There'll be a dumpster here. Mondays we are closed, so they're going to target the roof around the entrance on a Monday sometime in the future. And then after that, try and stay away from the front entrance as best possible. Dennis and I were speaking today about year-end account maintenance work. We do this every year at your suggestion, and I think at the charter's suggestion also, to move some money around to make most of the lines balance. I'll have a list for you at the June 7th meeting. And also the Legislative Policy Committee is on the agenda later here. And I guess I'll save those comments until we get to that agenda item. But just to reinforce, we need 4 new members for the Economic Development Committee here. We've had some resignations. People moved on for business and personal reasons. We're down to 3 active members. We have 2 other ex officios who are in the banking industry, and they're very valuable members. But we only have 3 voting members to the EDC now, and we really need some more people to step up and get on that important board that's doing good work. That's it from me. Thank you.
Okay. Comments or questions? No, let's go on to new business. Discuss whether to approve the proposed amendments to zoning ordinance Article 2, Section 2.08, size reductions or increases with minor revisions to sections 8.01, 902, 1001, and 1201. What's the board's pleasure?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to approve that amendment, or those amendments as stated. Any discussion? Sensing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5.
Thank you.
Discuss whether to approve the proposed amendments to the Zoning Ordinance Article 7, Section 7.01, Campground Developments.
So moved.
Been moved.
Second.
Do we have a second? Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
My only hang-up with this ordinance is the seasonal closing. I understand what you were saying about, wanting to make sure that this doesn't become somebody's residence, but I think we need to find a way to work around that because there are so few campgrounds that offer that. I think that it is an excellent opportunity for Waterboro to have a campground that becomes a year-round if we have somebody that's interested in doing something like that. And I think if we put in our ordinance right from the beginning that we're seasonal, then I think as people are looking maybe to open campgrounds, they see that in the ordinance, they're not going to think, oh, I can go in and ask. I mean, you're going to look at the ordinance and maybe see another community that doesn't have that. So I think we kind of hurt ourselves by having that in the ordinance if we're saying, well, we might be willing to work around that. So I'm not a big fan of putting an ordinance in place if you know that you're going to potentially shortly be changing it. So for, my thoughts, I would rather see us work that out, and I think that's something that could be done in fairly short order and deal with it all up front.
Any other discussion? Gary?
EJ can chime in here, maybe Dwayne as well. I'm not sure if Tim would, but a part of this, and I'm not sure how much we did in response to the 5,000 foot campsite, the things were really egregious and out of bounds, if you will. And those things were done not on a timeline, but were suggested to be done fairly quickly for the next campground season, if you will, for anybody that, we've had more than one person walk in the building here wanting to do campground work.
I completely hear what Select Board Member Girardi is saying. I think that if it's a matter of one more meeting, I can certainly work to tweak that wording in order to encourage the temporary use of a campground during the off-season or winter months. I don't know that one more meeting will make a big difference if everybody's comfortable with the rest of the ordinance. That's just a matter, I think, of tweaking the first paragraph.
But with the utilities aspect, the year-round, the wintertime, flushing of the toilet and running of water, I think that's going to take some time for the planning board to chew over that.
Well, it is, but it's also, I don't want to be callous about it, but it's also the campground owner's responsibility to maintain that. If they choose they want to open during the winter, that's clearly their responsibility, as it would be to plow and maintain the roads to get in there and plow and maintain any of the sites that they want to be able to rent if they're gonna if they're not just for people that have seasonal units. So
You don't see a new set of standards.
I don't see a new set of standards for that. No, I see. Tweaking. A few sentences.
If we're just going to talk about tweaking, then why would we? We're not going to go to another public hearing. So, I guess my put is that if you want to add an amendment, put the amendment on the floor, and we'll vote on the amendment and then vote on the article. Because I don't think it's a significant change that we'd have to go back to a public hearing for. And I don't think that we're going to gain anything out of that by going back to the planning board. If it's something that says, you're going to add it to campground shall be open from, it doesn't, it is worded a little funky.
Yeah.
It says campground shall be open from May 1st to October 31st, so that would tell you that they have to be open.
My proposal would be to eliminate that sentence altogether.
Completely?
Yes.
Because I guess I'd want to keep something like that in there and then suggest that they could be open from time to time.
See, and I don't even want to see us limiting, because the gentleman was right. I'm a camper. I love to go camping in the fall, in the winter, and guess where I'm going? Guess when I'm going? I'm going midweek when
Sure.
it's quiet, and you know, if I can go snowmobiling, I want to be on the trails when the families aren't. You know,
Yep.
so I don't want to limit it. And then the hunting, I have a camper in a campground, and I have access to it year round.
Right.
We have to be self-contained during the winter months.
Sure.
And I take advantage of that, and I enjoy that, and I think that it's a great opportunity for an owner to come in and do something like that, and I don't want to see us restricting or discouraging.
Oh, I completely respect that.
somebody
Yeah, it's just
that has the opportunity to do that.
I completely respect that, and I agree with it. I too was a camper. I don't anymore, but I see that and I understand it. My concern, though, in writing an ordinance is having some sort of enforcement opportunity to make sure that it does not become a year-round habitable space for someone to just move in and live and think that that's going to be their home. And it's a matter of how do we do that to safeguard the community and still allow the enjoyment of the campground.
Yep.
So that's where I'm coming from. But certainly, you know, you folks of the board, you make the final decision, you vote, and I'd be happy to try and adjust it any way it needs to be.
And if I'm the only one on the board that's important to, you've only got me here one more meeting anyways, so it might not be valuable to any, you know.
Yeah. And just going back to my original concern is this is not an easy fix it quick situation. There's a lot of discussion that's coming up. I would go with the original move to move this and to get it into ordinance and then change it as needed after the debate and after working on the potential that Tammy's talking about. But if we hold this up to do that, we're going to be talking about this 3 months from now.
Any other discussion?
When I originally brought up the idea of, being open part-time, they said, or have it regulated by the town. That way that they know that the town knows that they're in there.
Yes.
And that, we can reinforce that periodically, that this is limited, you can't establish year-round residency or anything like that. But I was also looking at it from a more pragmatic view in that it might develop a revenue stream for the town by saying, okay, we'll issue a 2-day permit or a 3-day permit or a 7-day permit, whatever, for that. And it would have, and you're right, they would have to be self-contained units, because I don't think that we want to allow something in an ordinance that places a burden on the campground owner. He may say, I'm going to close the place up because I'm going to Florida.
And that's her prerogative to do so.
And that's their prerogative. But I think if we have something there that, that we can discuss with landowners and say, okay.
And again, I mean, I think, I feel like I'm flip-flopping, but I mean, there's so many different ways to approach it. I think that we do have the ability. These projects will need to go to the planning board, and we do have the ability to condition them on something like requiring them to notify the code enforcement officer, several weeks or a month in advance of them wanting to hold any kind of special off-season events. And indicate the potential of how many units are going to be used.
You may want to have the permitting done by the fire department, so that they know that they're going to have the potential for responding to a fire or responding to some medical event up in there.
I mean, there are.
I mean, you can kill this thing by just adding a sentence to the end of this that says, off-season usage of the campground can be used on a limited basis. As long as it's approved by the code office or something. I don't know.
Like I said, we got a whole bunch of views here, and it's open up for discussion. So are we gonna continue keeping it?
I got a question in the back here, Jack.
I'm just worried if you could simply say in the ordinance that full-time residency is not allowed.
I suppose you can say that. It's just the enforcement factor of trying to track those folks. But I mean, I can do whatever you folks want. That's the easy part. I think we need consensus amongst the select board.
Well, the permitting thing tracks it.
Right. Yes, it does. It does.
And I don't want to see us being involved in it at all. Let a businessman run his business. If we're saying you can't have full-time residency year-round, but you can be open, then that's his responsibility to make sure that he doesn't have people living in his campground. And if, once in a while our CEO is out and about and he swings through and he sees, hey, that, boy, they've been there for a couple of weeks or whatnot, then that's how you enforce it. Maybe make your owner keep a log, but this is their business. They need to not only run a good business, but they need to make sure that they're in compliance with ordinances. I'm not interested in running their business for them.
The only thing that sentence does is establish the time frame. So,
yeah,
I guess as an alternative, you could axe the sentence out of there. But
Can I come in and build a campground on, we'll say 35, 40 acres, and under this ordinance, build 12 400 square foot camps and rent those out?
I mean, cottages?
Cottages or like Jack Smallhead down here.
But that's a different, it's not quote unquote a campground then, right? It's
they're rental properties.
I would say, I guess...
You see these all over the state.
Yep. I would say that because we've established a minimum lot size, and if they were going to at least meet the minimum lot size, there's a couple of things in play. Meet the minimum lot size to put those types of cabins on, and to me it's if the zoning currently allows that type of use in it, and I think one or two of our zones do allow that.
Yeah.
Then I'd say it would be yes, they could do a modified.
Well,
type
realistically, a residence got to have 740 square feet.
Correct.
But some of these campers are only 250, 300 square feet, and then you got some of them that's got
right
700 or 800 square feet in them.
But if someone wanted to build a couple of cabins to complement that, if the use is allowed in the zone, and again, I think there's one or two of those zones that allow seasonal cabins, then I'd say, yeah, they could create a modified...
And I mean, if you had acreage enough, you can cluster develop enough for...
But what you're talking about is still going to have to go to the planning board.
Right.
Correct. Yes.
Aren't we getting away a little bit from the campground aspect?
Well, no, not really, because this would be these winter rentals or these things could be rented year round in the campground.
Yeah, but then it's a rental. It's not a quote unquote. It can't be rented for residents. It would have to be proposed as a
seasonal. I'm talking
right.
3 or 4 days here and a week here,
or
but
you could
not
buy a camper trailer
a hunting
and do the same
camp.
thing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Dwayne.
I have to ask, the lot size that we're proposing in this ordinance, is that going to be good enough for snow removal? Get it out of the way for our emergency vehicles? We got a good snowstorm, we got people in there. Where's the snow going to go? Is there enough property for that?
Well, it gets
for
back
a lot of
to
space.
gets back to the campground owner doing what it's going to do to accommodate campers, right?
I think the only concern the town should have is emergency vehicles.
Right.
Well, if I was going to run a campground and have these winter rentals, my front parking lot would be plowed, and it'd be up to the trailer owner to get from my parking lot to his own camper. And if the fire department needed to get to the camper, it would be nothing different than a backwoods rescue.
Well, and it's also incumbent upon the planning board to ask those questions. as to, you know, if you are planning on being open in the winter, where are you going to put that snow? No different than we would if it was a parking lot for a Walmart or something to that effect.
If you go into 90% of these campgrounds that are, we can step out of Waterboro, but Alfred,
Yep.
all these campgrounds are plowed in the wintertime because there's a residence in the campground. The owner is actually living there. I'm looking at, I'm circling York County, and most of those campgrounds have got a year-round residence there, so they're plowing them anyway.
All right,
It's fine.
we've made a full circle.
Yeah.
So,
So, motion and second, I guess.
the motion has been approved and seconded to accept this as it's presented. Unless somebody has a different argument they want to add to this, I would call for a vote. All those in favor of this change? Opposed?
4-1.
Motion carries 4-1. All right. And the only thing that I would add, Lee J and Dwayne and anybody that's listening from the planning board, is might be something that you put on them, you know, things to do, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, and we're making good headway at this.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lee
Thank
J.
you, Lee J.
All right, discuss vote on the committee appointment. We have one.
I move to accept Helen McKay and appoint her to the cemetery committee.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to appoint Helen McKay to the cemetery committee. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Line item D, discuss vote to approve quitclaim deed. This deed is payment of taxes.
Chairman, everything has been paid up. The documentation for that was in your packet there.
Yep.
I think if there's anything else that's outstanding on that.
Make a motion to approve the quitclaim deed.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to approve as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Going to the next page. On your agenda, item E, discuss nominating town administrator to the Maine Municipal Association's Legislative Policy Committee.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Been a while since we've had anybody on.
I think
that
I think it's an excellent idea for Waterboro to be
Yeah.
represented.
committee. Okay.
This other fellow has dropped out, so he's not going to run.
All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Discuss to vote whether or not to set June 21st as the date for a public hearing and possible vote to update the no smoking language in our existing Parks and Rec ordinance. They need some help of who's proposing this.
Lisa Tudor, Rec Department, part of the no smoking compliance, if you will. The information in your packet was underlined and strike out
Yep.
in terms of new language. So nothing to decide tonight, just to set the public hearing for,
So it just clarifies language.
that's right.
I mean, before it said municipal employees could smoke in a recreational.
No.
It does.
Oh, yeah, well,
Except that municipal employees performing necessary maintenance.
yeah, that goes to that end, yes.
Oh, you gotta love it. All right, is everybody, okay, we changed up the meetings, right, in June?
Yes, June 7 and 21.
7 and 21, so is everybody okay with putting this on the 21?
Yeah.
All right, so we will do that. I think we need a vote to do that. We'll just plug it in there.
Okay.
Okay, there's no old business. Item 12, other discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the May 10th regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Pending decisions, we're still working the comprehensive plan task list along with the ordinance list. We ought to probably put that on there just as well.
Yeah, that's right, it's supposed to be a double, and that's
Right.
a week from tonight.
That's right. week's action list. Any actions out of tonight other than the quitclaim deed and the signatures? That's item 16 is, yes, it's not listed under item 16, but we need to sign the quitclaim deed. Agenda items for next week?
Get the library bylaws that we didn't do back along, so we can
Right.
add those to the agenda. Other than that, not all that much at the moment.
I guess prep for town meeting, right?
And we'll have the account adjustments, review account adjustments.
We'll have that discussion. Well, why don't we, put those out and we kind of redo the whole, like, we didn't do a quarterly per se, but we ought to at least go through where we are with everything.
We should just
Okay.
do that, so before it gets next.
Items needed signature, the minutes and quitclaim deed.
Because I got a black one.
David's gonna scroll the reminders here after the meeting.
Right.
With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, before entertaining that motion, could we seek some type of supplemental report from the state regarding the bridge, specifically the one on Hamilton Road? I mean, they said they did an inspection, but they sent us a bunch of pictures. And it's supposed to be a report, but to me, that was not a report. It was just pictures. I want to know if there's any, cracking in the surface that they detected, something that they actually, performed, an inspection on it, and some type of, resulting thing. I mean, I can say, geez, I inspected town hall by taking a picture of the front of the building, but that doesn't tell you anything.
I think that was the only document that came in the email, but let me double check. Because it was a brand new bridge, they didn't have much to say.
I know, but, there's water running through. Is there any erosion, something that we need to address immediately, or, do they have a classification that they rate bridges at? Like if it's a class A, then there's no material defects or anything that needs some attention, or is it a class B or a C? However they do it, I don't know. Maybe, Blaine can respond to that better than I can, where he, is with DOT, but just.
Are the fish scraping that belly?
Which bridge are you talking about?
Well, they sent down didn't you
That
get?
whole report. It's,
Yeah, they said that the state gave a report on the Hamilton Bridge, but it just showed pictures.
What are they calling the Hamilton Bridge of?
The new culverts there.
Yeah, the one
On
on
the Hamilton Road itself.
yeah.
Because what I call the Hamilton Bridge is on 202. If I was sent out to inspect the Hamilton Bridge.
Sorry, the one on the bridge on Hamilton Road that was replaced. It
Okay.
goes over the, I can't think of the name of the brook offhand, but,
Comes out of the Meadows.
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think we would.
I don't know who did it. I wouldn't dare say a word.
Gary can plug that.
Well, I'll
Because
go back and look
I
at the
don't
email.
think that's got a bridge number on it.
Yeah, my concern would be the bridge
Is it-
on West
If it's
Road.
got a bridge number,
Yeah, the West Road, but when we get a report on that had some, structural defects in it that they patched. But I mean, I think we'd expect more from our own CEO if we asked him to do an inspection on the building, and he went out and just took a picture of the front of the building and came back and gave it to us. And what does it really tell you? I mean,
That he can take a picture.
yeah. So,
I was there.
yeah.
All right, I'll look.
All right. I now would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you and good night.